That is really heartening about our movement. One of the things that is on our side always is, of course, that we have the truth on our side. Facts, figures, life experience of most people. That's one of our key arrows in our quiver, if I can be so bold. That is one of the things that really helps us move forward. Now, of course, unfortunately, there are people who are in the media who do not deal in the truth. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't care about the truth. They just care about obscuring it. They care about making sure that it's nuanced, and that there's shades of gray, and that, you know, there's another story here underneath that we have to understand. I was not able to get one of those people to come here. I have Mr. Duggan. Mr. Duggan is as close as I can find to Britt Reed. You guys all remember the Green Hornet? Britt Reed. Britt Reed. Crusading newspaper publisher by day, Green Hornet by night. Come on up here.
Wow. I don't know if I can live up to that. I live in my house. Now, how much time did you say? 2 hours? So let me just give you a little background about who I am and what I do. I own the Valley Patriot newspaper. There's a bunch of them over there near the door if you'd like one. I suggest that you pick it up and read through it just because I want you to find something that you hate about it and then email me how much you hate it. I love that stuff. I also have a radio show on WCAP. And I do fill-ins up at WTPL up in Concord. A lot of friends in media, so a lot of times I'm asked to fill in on TV shows and radio shows. And one of the reasons why there are people who are always calling me back, even though I'm not a member of the liberal Democrat. By the way, let's not call them the liberal media. Let's not call them the Democrat media. Because quite frankly, it doesn't really matter how liberal or conservative they are. They're propagandists for the Democrat National Committee. They take their talking points from the Democrat National Committee. And when we say liberal media, everybody else tunes it out, right? When you say Democrat media, you're not used to hearing that, they have to think about it for a couple of extra seconds. And if they start to fight with you about it and say, oh, what about Fox News? I hear this every day, right? We talk about the liberal media, what about Fox News? Well, listen, Fox News sucks too. They just suck less. And when you're talking to liberals, or you're talking to people who are in the media, or you're talking to people who don't share your views, and you agree with them on something, like, for example, Fox News sucks too, all of a sudden they're a little bit more willing to listen to some of the things that you have to say. They're at least not going to reject out of hand before you finish saying it. They're not trying to, suddenly they're not trying to cut you off. And I deal with a lot of liberal people. I encourage liberals to debate and to fight with me, only because I use it as a science project. I want to pick the minds of especially media people who are Democrats, who are liberals, who are using their craft to promote propaganda. One of the things that I have been talking an awful lot about on my radio show, and gets me probably the most hate mail, so I continue doing it, is this whole Ferguson, Baltimore, North Carolina. You know, I sit in my news office all day, if I'm not out doing stuff like this, and I've got 3 TVs going, and I'm watching all the carnage in whatever city of the week it is that there's a riot. And I think to myself, you know, some of the easiest ways I've been able to convert liberals to my side on an issue, besides agreeing with them, or at least making them feel like I agree with them, is to use their own concepts against them. This is probably the most effective thing a gun owner or someone who cares about the First Amendment can use as a tool, a media tool. Excuse me, can I just have a drink? Sorry. So I'm watching Ferguson, I'm watching Baltimore, and you know, my dad was a cop. I grew up in the city of Lawrence, pretty tough community. So I tend to look at things a little bit more from a law enforcement stand. And I'm watching Baltimore and I'm watching Ferguson. I've got a liberal sales girl who's in my office kind of watching and chatting with me. And she's talking about how evil the cops are. And the cops love to beat black people just because they're black. I'm sure there are some cops that do that, but it's not a systemic problem. And she's going on and on about how awful the cops are, that they stop people for no reason, and they violate their rights, and by the way, they're reading your emails, and they're listening to your voicemails, and they just can't be trusted. So I looked at her and I said, you know, maybe you're right about that. So if that's the case, why is it that the liberal media, the Democrat media, continues to promote the narrative that only cops should have guns? Like, I'm confused by that. And when you ask them the question that way, as if you're just kind of curious, you don't want to fight with them, it's not a debate, you're just curious. How can you have the state, on the one hand, all the cops are jackbooted thugs, they're racist, they're looking to take your rights away from you. On the other hand, only cops should have guns. So I put it to her in a term, and I love to do this because I like to watch the corpuscles in their head explode. I put it in terms that a liberal would understand. I said, how would you feel? You know, liberals love to feel, right? How would you feel if you were a poor black man living in Ferguson, 5 blocks away from where the rioting was going on, or in Baltimore, 7 blocks away, and you know the cops are 2 hours away if you have a problem and you dial 911? What do you do? If you're a black man living in a black neighborhood, and you got drug dealers and gun dealers in your neighborhood, and the cops are an hour or 2 away because they're a little busy with a riot 5 blocks away, then what do? They don't have an answer, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing because it makes them think. One of the things that, and I was listening, Matt's absolutely right, the previous speaker was absolutely right. You know, one of the things that we have on our side is the facts. They have feelings, we have facts. If we start to argue with them, they get us pissed off. And now we're dealing on their level, on an emotional level. And then they start throwing at you question after question after question. You can't effectively catch up to all the things they're throwing at you, and they win, or at the very least, it's a stalemate. How does that help? I was watching the Hernandez situation. I don't know if you guys caught this, but as someone who studies the media, it's really fascinating for me. Watching Anderson Cooper interview the jury. The jurors said effectively, number one, we don't know, quote, we don't know if Aaron Hernandez pulled the trigger. Right? They said on Anderson Cooper, after the verdict, we don't know if he pulled the trigger. And the jury foreman said to Anderson Cooper, I played the clips on my show a few weeks ago, but he had that gun. So think about this in Massachusetts. The jury themselves admit after the verdict, after they convicted him of second-degree murder. Was it first-degree murder? I don't remember if it was first or second. But they admitted afterwards that they didn't know if he pulled the trigger. They didn't know if he was the one responsible for the murder. But he had the gun, and that's why they convicted him. Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. And that's because we're in Massachusetts, and they get a daily dose from the media, Channel 4, 5, and 7, the New England Cable News, the Boston Globe. A lot of these liberal news media, Democrat news media outlets want to make sure that people are afraid of guns. And that's why the Boy Scouts are now stopping Boy Scouts from having water pistols. Because on the same vein that they're going to elect homosexuals, whether you agree or not, it just kind of seems very hypocritical. On the one hand, they're saying, we're going to let homosexuals be in the Boy Scouts, we're not going to exclude anybody, we want to be open and affirming. Unless you have a squirt gun. And that's bad.
Unless they're pink.
Right, well, if they're pink, maybe. One of the other things that I noticed when studying the news media, and I want you guys to be aware, because when it happens, I want you to tweet and Facebook to the news outlets that do this. A man walks into a McDonald's, he shoots 3 people, what do they call him? Anybody? A gunman. Guy walks into a McDonald's with a knife and he stabs 18 people, they all die, what do they call him? Murderer. A suspect or a murderer. Interesting, huh? They purposely use words. The media's job is to put mental images into people's minds. And they know that, and they're very good at it. So what they want to do is they want to change your perception by using certain words. So when they say gunman, well, gunman equals bad, right? Now, everybody in this room is probably either carrying a gun or has carried a gun. And you're not bad.
Thank you.
But in the media, you are bad because you're a gunman or a gunwoman, right? So what we want to do is we want to use the liberal code words. The only way to win is to fight back using their own language, using their own concepts, just like, as I said a few seconds ago, on the one hand, only cops should have guns, on the other hand, the cops are all jackbooted thugs who want to take away our rights and kill us. And to do that, I think, when they start coming out with these labels and stereotypes about gun owners, call it that. Right? When they start talking about, oh, are you one of those gun nuts? You ask them, are you all gun nuts? I don't understand. What are you saying? All people with guns are nuts? Because if you can communicate with a liberal on the terms that they're used to having conversations with all of their friends who are usually all liberals, because they don't want to surround themselves with people who have different points of view. When you start communicating with them on their own level, you actually start to get through. Because it's no longer about emotion, it's about facts. But with the I lost my place, so, with crazy gun people. So, if you remember, probably about a year ago, there was a little dust up at the White House. Jay Carney, the White House press secretary, got called out for using some politically incorrect term, and he came out the next day and defended it by saying, well, I don't know if you remember this, he said, well, we were using a code word for the base to let them know that this is exactly how we felt. This is a code word, he said, for the base. I was shocked. I wasn't shocked that he was doing it, I was shocked that they admitted that they use code words to gin up their base. Now, we conservatives, we kind of do the same thing, so we admit, and they don't. So I think what we need to do is we need to start using their code words against them. We need to start using their concepts against them. So what is the most important thing to a liberal? Blacks, homosexuality, women, the war on women. Scott Brown hates women. How many times did we hear that during that campaign? Scott Brown hates women. Scott Brown hates women everywhere we went. Every time I interviewed Elizabeth Warren, I interviewed her 4 times. I asked her, can you justify how it is that you can continue to say Scott Brown hates women? And her answer was, that's not the real issue. The real issue is, and I just respectfully would like you to understand that that is the issue. That was my question. Could you please answer it? 4 times she couldn't answer it. So we want to use the liberal code words, we want to use the liberal concepts. And when we look at the issue of women, it's the big thing Democrats always talk about, because at the end of a campaign, in the last 3 weeks of an election, when their power is on the line, we know for a fact in every single election, the largest number of undecideds is young women between the ages of 18 and 36. Which is why they push the war on women a year out. Because they're building a foundation for the last 3 weeks. They understand how elections work. So I think as Second Amendment advocates, what we need to be doing is using it against them. How about a woman's right not to be raped walking through the city of Lawrence at 2 o'clock in the morning?
That's right.
Does she not have that right? So we need to start using that concept when we're writing letters to the editor, when we're tweeting, when we pick up the phone and call Fox News or CNN or anybody else to complain about whatever it is that we don't like that they did. When we're interviewing candidates, when a candidate knocks on your door, that's the best. That's the absolute best, especially if they're a Democrat. Because you ask them where they stand on the Second Amendment, and they give you their pretty language of politics, about how dangerous it is, the statistics. They love statistics. Because it's abstract and it's not real. And you have to start to ask them, doesn't my 19-year-old daughter have the right to walk through the city of Holyoke or Cambridge or Boston or Lawrence? Actually, pick the ones that are really bad, like Springfield and Lawrence. Because they can't argue with you, right? And ask them, well, doesn't my 19-year-old daughter have the right to defend herself if someone breaks into her bedroom and tries to rape her? Again, just step back and watch the corpuscles in their head explode. Because again, it's all about feeling. It's about emotion. It's about getting you worked up so that you will see things their way. You won't be able to you won't be able to effectively fight back. There's a concept I learned in criminal justice class at UMass, and I can't remember the name of it. If anybody knows, just shout it out. Football players, for example, the quarterback always has to have a very low excitability level. You ever see Tom Brady or any quarterback be interviewed? They always say, "Oh yeah, we're not threw the ball. We got it into the end zone." Right? Has to have a very low, because he has the most complicated task on the field. So he has to engage with his left brain. The tackles, on the other hand, when they interview them after the game, we ripped their heads off, we did it, right? Because they have the simplest job on the field. The simplest job on the field is to kill the other guy. And every time that ball gets hot, kill the other guy. We have to start thinking like quarterbacks. We have to start debating like quarterbacks and not always be so willing to jump over the other person when they're wrong and they're speaking. Let them hang themselves.
Right.
And then curiously ask them questions like, like I said earlier, with the whole Baltimore thing. How do you square those two things? I'm curious. You almost had me. I was willing to change my position on guns, but I got this one thing that's nagging at me. And again, they won't have an answer, which is good. And if you're on the radio or you're writing a letter to the editor and they're reading it, it makes even more people think twice about it. You're never going to win someone over by fighting with them or by debating with them. So I just ask questions, especially when they call on my radio show. Someone calls in, they're anti-gun. I play teacher. It doesn't matter to me where you stand. I'm not going to change your mind. You're not going to change my mind. But I'm curious. You say nobody should have guns except the police. Except the police are all abusing our authority. How do we fight back? How does a black guy in Ferguson or Baltimore fight back when those jackbooted thugs kick his door in and beat the hell out of him because he's black? And use Rodney King. What if Rodney King had a gun? Wouldn't that to a liberal, that would have been great, right? He would have shot all the cops, they would have been happy. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the main idea of what I'm trying to convey to you guys as Second Amendment advocates is, if we act extreme, if we talk extreme, if we fight with them, if we talk over them, nothing gets accomplished. They walk away holding their view, you walk away holding your view. If you engage, if you question, if you're curious and not angry, if you're not disputing them but questioning what they have to say, a lot of times not only do you get them to think, the people standing around listening to your discussion are also going to walk away thinking. And I think that's probably something that we should all be doing. How much time do I have? Did you say I had another 3 hours? There's at least a couple other things I just wanted to share with you. I run a newspaper, I do a radio show. It all depends on advertising. So we're a big Second Amendment, pro-Second Amendment newspaper. We're always writing Second Amendment editorials. We're always getting the crap kicked out of us by the liberals because we're in Lawrence, North Andover. I mean, Andover is probably one of the most liberal towns in the Commonwealth, and Lawrence is not really that far behind. Barbara Italian, I think she ran for state senate, very anti-gun. She won 9,000 to 3,000 in Lawrence. The guy that ran against her beat her in 3 other communities 80-20. But she won Lawrence 9,000 to 3,000. She beat Lawrence 3-1 because they go deep down the ticket. They're very anti-gun. So when I run into a guy in the North Andover area, the Lawrence area, and he's a pro-Second Amendment guy, and he owns a Richdale or a pizza shop, and I say, hey, I'd like to advertise with us for a pro-Second Amendment, and they're not interested. And I walk away shaking my head, scratching, saying, now that I know they're a Second Amendment advocate and they own a pizza shop, I'm going to buy more pizza there. I want him to be successful. But we don't get it on the other end. So if you guys know someone who owns a consulting business or a bank or a coffee shop, and you know that they're pro-Second Amendment, you know they're Tea Party, maybe they're even Oath Keepers, go out of your way to patronize them. But let them understand that you're patronizing them for that reason, and that they should be doing the same. They should be buying their pizza or their dough or their sauce from another guy that's conservative, pro-Second Amendment, pro-Tea Party, or Oath Keeper. Because that's what the liberals do. And I can tell you, I know that for a fact. Do you know how many places I went into in Lawrence in the last just 6 months alone? Show them the Valley Patriot. Explain to them what it is. They say, yeah, we've seen it around. Aren't you that Tea Party newspaper? Well, yeah, kind of. But I mean, we do let anybody write for us. We have a lesbian who writes for us. We have a global warming alarmist state senator, Katie Ives, who not only hugs trees, she thinks they hug her back. She actually said that on my show. I said, so you're one of these tree huggers? And she said, yeah. I said, yeah, but I bet they don't hug you back. She said, oh no, they give us shade and they give us air, and that's the same as hugging us back.
Oh,
So I show them like that Senator Ives rights for us, we have a lesbian who writes for us, because we believe in the First Amendment too. Apparently they don't, because they're only looking on the left to patronize businesses that agree with their political views. Many of them, most of them, if not all of them. But we don't. We circle the wagons and we shoot air. We eat our yard. We say, oh, that's great, you want a newspaper or a pizza shop and your Second Amendment, you're a Tea Party guy. That's awesome, see you later. And we're not using the power of our purse. So I'm going to leave you with this. When you're fighting back with liberals, when you're trying to convey a message of Second Amendment, understand that liberals talk in code, the media talks in code. Use the code against them. Liberals and the Democrat media care about promoting the Democrat National Committee's agenda. Use their issues against them. Women, rape, blacks, inner cities. Use it all against them. Because it works. The reason it works is because the media has conditioned those in the middle and to the left to respond to those dog whistle phrases. And when someone from the right suddenly is using that dog whistle phrase, it confuses them. And that's the best way to get it. So, I mean, I can answer any questions. I don't know if I'm going over my time. But if anybody has any questions, I'll answer them. And if not, I'll just let the next guy come in. Awesome. Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. The thing is that when you see something, for instance, on Fox, I call up 45725 saying, why aren't you bringing it up? Why aren't you talking about this?
Sure.
You know, this is, you just tell us what you want us to hear. And I've gotten to the, it's almost like they know who's calling now.
Listen, I can tell you, being in the media, I have a very different perspective than the people who consume the media, because I see how the sausage is made. So Al Jazeera America is the furthest to the left you can get in this country as far as news, at least TV, cable news media. They're even further to the left than MSNBC. I actually have friends that now work there. They weren't my friends a while back, but as I started tweeting them and tagging them on Facebook, when they get something wrong, especially about the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, or police issues, Ferguson, Baltimore, I tag the crap out of them. And you know what? Morgan Radford and Ray Suarez and the rest of those guys, they all have interns that read every single tweet. In fact, most media companies have a software program that will scour the internet and download into their database every single day, every single thing that was said on Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, Facebook, and whatever else is out there that has to do with them or their programming. And they crunch those numbers. And quarterly, their boards meet, and they talk about those numbers. Become part of the numbers. Because when you become part of the numbers, they listen. But do it respectfully, because if you say, hey, Al Jazeera, you're a bunch of terrorists, you're owned by Qatar, no wonder why you guys hate the Second Amendment in America. Well, they're gonna look at the number, but they're gonna completely disregard what it is you had to say. What I do is I say, I love Al Jazeera America, and I watch it every day purely for entertainment. And when they get something, I say, I love Al Jazeera America. If only you guys would tell the truth. Recently I said, if only you guys would tell the truth and tell both sides about Baltimore. Morgan Radford, who is an on-air personality, tweeted back to me and said, I'm going to bring this up at our meeting tomorrow morning. Thank you very much for your feedback. I was shocked.
Wow.
I was even more shocked the following day when she tweeted back to me and said they actually had a lengthy discussion about my tweet and my criticism. That in Baltimore they were showing one side, and they weren't at least being fair to the police officers that were being accused. And what I had said in my tweet that really got them was, if these were 6 black men being accused of murdering a police officer, you guys would be telling at least both sides.
Yeah.
Or you'd be taking the sides of the 5 black men, or the 6 black men who were being accused. Why isn't it the same now? See, it wasn't an attack. It was a question. When you ask them questions, it resonates with them. So I'll leave you with that. If anybody wants to email me, my email is in the Valley Patriot newspaper. I love a bunch of them over there. I'd love for you guys to have me back. I'd love to talk about media bias in general. I think we can all learn from it, and I want to thank you guys for inviting me.